Key, you kick us off. We got like 20 people in, and we might as well just get it going. I'm sure people can catch up once we get started. But I'll kick us off, and then I'll hand it over to you. But just what this meeting's about. We've been running this. This is our second iteration of this meeting. We're doing it once a month. We're thinking about maybe doing it twice a month. We'll see how the reception is. But we're basically bringing a group of people together. This meeting's about real estate investing, building wealth, helping people reach their goals. And the reason we thought about this meeting is I'm a native New Yorker. Key lives in New York. Our other partner lives in New York City, and then our other partner lives in California. And we all invest out of state, right? There's a lot of advantages to making the whole country your area of operations as opposed to the places we live in, right? New York, for example, landlord unfriendly, taxes are super high price points, riskier from my perspective, right? So that kind of led me to invest in areas outside military bases, places like Savannah, Georgia as well, Pensacola, Florida, we're operating in. We're all over the country at this point. So we said, hey, let's get this group together and let's help other people do the same thing. This meeting's free. We don't charge anything. We're just here to share information, have beers, have a good time. And this meeting's supposed to be fun. Like if you want to like joke around, that's cool too. Last meeting we had, I think I presented for an hour and I definitely finished at least 2 beers during the meeting. So like this meeting's supposed to be fun. So without further ado, Key is going to kick us off. But I'm excited. I'm happy to meet all you guys that I haven't met before.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us tonight. My name's Justin Key. I currently live in New York City. I am co-founder of Grayline Investments. We're a virtual wholesaling company primarily, but we do a lot more, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the talk. But we primarily focus on wholesaling, long distance flipping, and long distance rentals as assets under management. I grew up in a military family, lived all over the country, graduated from West Point in 2009, served in the Army for 5 years, and went directly into medical device sales following that, and quickly found real estate investing to really be my passion. And unfortunately, as soon as I got out of the Army, I lived in Denver for 4 years, and then I've been in New York for 3 years. So those are really, really expensive markets to invest in. You need a lot of capital. And so that's what really drove me to start investing outside of where I live. Frank, do you want to tell everyone a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah. I should have done that before. So I'm the CEO of Grayline Investments. I started this company with Justin Key, John Plumstead, and Aaron Helly. We're all classmates, 2009. A little bit about myself. I was in the Army for 5 years as well. I'm a West Pointer, like actually a lot of people on the call today. Football player. Got out of the Army. I'm sorry, did someone say something? Okay. I got out of the Army 5 years ago, maybe 6 actually. And I've been working in financial services. 2 years ago, started investing in real estate. And then about 6 months ago, our partners in this group said, let's put our foot on the gas and let's do this for real, right? So we started with no money in our bank account and maybe 10 houses or 10 units between the 4 of us. And now our business is putting 30 homes under contract a month. We operate all over the country. We offer a couple of different things to investors, just so you guys know. We sell deals, so we offer deals. I think Key's actually going to showcase a deal at the end of the meeting today. If I'm wrong, Key, just check me. But I think that's what we're going to do. Yep. We offer fixed rates of return. We buy homes ourselves, and people lend us money to buy those homes. And generally, we're giving 8 to 9% on our private money. But conditions can always make it go up or down. Right? We do give more in some cases. And we also flip houses ourselves. So we flip houses. We do lease options. We have rentals. We sell homes. We're all over the place. We're very, very active. And our goal for our company is to be the number one off-market, private real estate transactor in the country. That's where we're trying to be.
Oh, you're taking all my thunder, man.
Hey, dude. Sorry. Juiced up.
No worries. Look, the reason we're here today is because I know a lot of people get nervous about investing outside of where they live. It's pretty uncomfortable buying a home sight unseen, but we really want to help you put your fears to rest. Right now, we're operating in 12 markets throughout the country. None of our partners or employees live in those markets at all. And we're doing all those things Frank just mentioned. So I want you to know that it's totally possible and doable. And we're going to try to give you some tools to empower you and start doing it and move forward. So I just want to briefly touch kind of on our company story. So these are the four founders of our company, four partners. We're all West Point grads, same year, 2009. Like Frank said, we are all active real estate investors on our own. We came together and said, "Hey, why don't we work together? Try to find some off-market, deeply discounted rental properties." And our goal was, let's buy 10 properties in 2020. And then a few months in, we started using some wholesaling techniques to start contacting potentially motivated sellers and try to find some off-market properties. And we realized we were pretty good at it. And that snowballed into us saying, "Hey, let's build a wholesaling company." And now we're doing all these things that Frank mentioned, and it's all virtual. It's all online. It's all using teams that are on the ground. And so, again, this is totally doable. A little bit more about ourselves. Pretty much everyone in our company is veterans. And I think what we value most is integrity and service, right? And not service to the country, but like service to the people around us. And that's why we're doing like a free webinar like this. We want to operate with, trust, honesty. We want to be straight up with people, and we want to help people on their real estate journey. We have a really cool, diverse team with all different, from all different walks of life, different professional experiences and talents. But the one thing that brings us all together is we're really passionate about real estate. One kind of rule that we use in our business is we want to be conservative and aggressive at the same time. So it's always a balancing act in real estate investing to not be too conservative or too aggressive, right? If you're too conservative, you're going to miss out on deals, right? Because you're going to second guess yourself. You're not going to pursue opportunities like you should. And if you're too aggressive, right, you're not going to do the homework like you should. And, you can get burnt by a deal. So with our underwriting, we try to be extremely conservative, right? What's the worst case scenario for these numbers? And that allows us, when we find a deal, to act with conviction and go after a deal really aggressively. And again, at the bottom those are all the things that we're doing right now.
Can I add one thing, Key?
Yeah.
One thing with being aggressive, if anyone's bought an off-market deal before, they probably know this, but it could be multifamily or it could be single family, whatever the asset class is. If you get a real deal, like something that people are going to be anxious to get under management, those things move quick. Most of our deals we get under contract and the closing happens in 3 to 4 weeks. So, that's fast, right? That's actually faster than most banks can facilitate a loan. So that's what we mean by conservative but aggressive. We have criteria that we stick to no matter what. But once we see something that falls within that criteria, you got to attack. And that's not just for our business. I think that's for anyone that wants to get good at finding deals.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Our best deals we put out, we get a lot of feedback pretty much within an hour. So Frank touched on this. Our dream, our vision is to become the biggest buyer and seller of all off-market property in the entire country. We are a long way from that. I will say Frank had a call with one of our mentors, Bill Allen, who's a veteran. He was a helicopter pilot in the Army. He runs 7-figure flipping. He's a big name in this space. And his team said that we're actually one of the fastest growing wholesaling companies in the country. So, that's really been motivating since we heard that this week to keep pushing and try to get that goal. But the real question is why do we want to be a big player in this space? And I think, at least for me, it's really to be surrounded by awesome, like-minded people that are also passionate about real estate so that we can all grow together, build long-term wealth, escape the rat race, achieve financial freedom. That's what I really want out of a business like this. And I think Frank agrees. All right, so let's dive into this here. All right, so what is long-distance real estate investing? Very simply put, long-distance investing is buying, renting, or selling investment properties outside of your own backyard, right? It's not where you live. It's somewhere that you wouldn't just pick up and drive to on a Friday afternoon in the middle of the day, right? um, somewhere outside of where you live. So one interesting stat that I just read this week in Newsweek was 50% of millennials, about 50% of millennials are using long distance real estate investing to build long-term wealth. At first, that was very surprising to me. But the more I thought about it, it makes sense, right? So just look what's going on in the world in the last 6 months. Huge corporations are moving to, virtual meetings, virtual offices. Everything is going online. Millennials and younger are used to using technology and the internet, and uh, those same group of people want to typically live in, popular cities that a lot of things are happening in, but those are often the hardest places to invest. So you're not alone if you're investing outside of where you live. A lot of people in our generation are doing it. So I wanted to share a quote from David Green. He is one of the co-hosts on Bigger Pockets podcast. He's there with Brandon Turner every week. He wrote this book, Long Distance Real Estate Investing. And this was one of the quotes. So the potential to buy in different markets and enjoy the fruits of those market strengths opened the doors for him that he never thought was possible. So if you currently live in an overpriced market with expensive homes, low cash flow, unfavorable landlord laws, that doesn't mean that you can't start building long-term wealth through real estate investing. It just means you have to find the market that's going to allow you to do that. So
I was going to ask a question for the group because we got a small enough group today that I think we can be interactive.
Yeah.
Who here in the group owns out-of-state assets or real estate assets? Anyone here already own stuff? I'm sure a couple of our military buddies do.
Yeah, I do. I went in Alabama.
How's that one doing, Dave?
Oh, it's well, I bought it right before the crash in 2008. So, but we're good now. We righted the ship, so now it's just a good rental.
Oh, okay. So you took a dive for a little bit?
Yeah.
Crash? Yeah. Cool. Anybody else?
I'm throwing offers out there now, so hopefully within a month or two, maybe we'll say, in Cleveland specifically.
And you're seeking cash flow?
Yeah. Yeah, mainly, yeah.
Is that what drew you to Cleveland?
Primarily, yeah, and just the straight up low prices, low barrier to entry. You don't need that much capital to just buy outright.
Yeah. And and you live in New York?
I do, yeah, Queens.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a New Yorker too. You're like the perfect example of someone who lives in a big city that sees that you can buy a home in Cleveland for like $100,000 and it rents for $1,200, or
Yep,
probably better than that, honestly.
Yeah, the rent to price ratio. It's hard to beat.
Yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt, Key. I was just trying to do a pulse check, but thank you guys for answering.
No, you're good, man. So let's just confront kind of the challenges that people kind of think about when they start thinking about investing outside of where they live. So the first is it just feels really uncomfortable, buying a property that you haven't seen in person. I think a lot of that has to do with fear, right? Fear that you don't know exactly what you're buying, that you can get taken for a ride by the agent or contractor that's actually on the ground. And ultimately, it's fear that you're going to lose money on the deal. And up to 10, 15 years ago, those fears were completely justified, right? You couldn't really know what a house was worth without going through an agent unless you had some familiarity with that area, right? You couldn't tell, you couldn't really find out where the good school districts were, where crime was bad, without putting all of your trust into people on the ground. And in those cases, it would be very easy to get taken advantage of. So, I completely understand those fears, concerns, worries that you might have. They were completely justified, but I truly, truly believe that it's different now. We have technology, resources, and ways with which you can buy real estate that we didn't have before, right? And a lot of those concerns in my mind are pretty negligible at this point, right? So think about being able to check what your agent says a home is worth or what you should list a home for, right? You can check comps online. I think every homeowner in America knows this estimate of their house. If you're curious about what an investment property might rent for, there's so many good tools out there that you can use to run comps for rents, right? You can use rentometer.com. Zillow gives you a rent estimate on properties. And so you can basically check that against what a potential property manager is saying on the ground. And, if you're doing rehab work, you have a contractor, you can really hound them to take pictures and videos, and then to take more pictures and more videos and stay on top of them so that you can check that the work that they said was complete is done, right? And then you can leverage all your other members on the ground to double check each other. So the bottom line is that while it might invoke a little bit more fear, it might take a little bit more time and effort, it's 100% doable. Now, one thing I have on the slide here is management costs, right? I know there are some people out there that like to manage their own rentals. Those people are absolutely insane. Like, being a property manager is not a fun job. It might be one of the worst jobs in real estate. And so, in my mind, if you want to scale like an investment business and build a large portfolio that's going to cash flow and support your lifestyle, then you shouldn't be managing your own properties. So maybe that's a cost, maybe it's not. If you really want to scale, to me, that's not really a cost. So let's talk about a little bit about the advantages here. The first is that once you decide that, hey, I'm going to move forward, I'm going to start investing outside of where I live, you basically have endless possibilities. There are so many good markets in America to invest in right now. And no matter what you're looking for, you can find somewhere. The other thing is, if you are investing currently where you live and you are managing a few of your own properties, once you commit to long distance investing, you're going to be freed up from that management burden. You're going to be able to build a portfolio that's much more diverse than just your local market. And we'll talk about how you can kind of look at some macroeconomic markers to make some decisions in that regard. But it's going to make your portfolio a little bit more insulated against any kind of market conditions. And then you're just going to be able to find better market conditions. So I live in Manhattan, New York City, right? Prices are sky high. Rents are sky high too, but it's not high enough for a property to cash flow. The price to rent ratios are really bad here. And no matter what your strategy is, you can find a market that's going to fit that strategy if you're willing to commit to long distance investing. You have anything to add here, Frank?
Yeah, I mean, I think because most of the comments we're making today are around single family, and I think there's a really simple way to look at the single family game itself. Is it's really all about, no matter where you invest, getting that deal for less than it's worth, buying a house for less than it's worth. If I'm in a middle market area like Cleveland, that was just referenced by one of our group members, I want to buy those homes for 75% of what it's worth, resale value, or less. That's my goal. That's actually our underwriting criteria in the majority of the markets we operate in. If I'm maybe in like Colorado Springs, where appreciation, like homes are just increasing in value like crazy, maybe I move it up to 80% because it's worth the risk, right? Because you can make a lot of money there. Maybe 85 max. We don't go above that ever. But to simplify it, it's like, how do you get something cheap? Because then you could do anything, right? You could flip a home if you get it cheap enough. You could immediately resell it, which is called wholetailing. You could rent it out and then refinance out, get all your money out. Like, that's the way that the professionals do it. One way I look at it is when you go on Zillow and you see recently sold homes, sometimes you see those prices where you're like, yo, how did that person get that home so cheap? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, that's us. Like those are the people you need to talk to get the deal, right? Like, that's how I look at it. So that's all I'll add.
No, those are some great points, man. Sorry, we are recording, right? Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. So let's get into our simple 5-step system for successfully long distance investing. Okay. So number one, you're going to need to choose your niche and your strategy. By niche, I mean, what property type are you pursuing? If you're already an investor, then obviously I would recommend just like continuing in that niche, whatever property you've been pursuing. But if you're new, you're going to need to figure out: do you want a single family home, multifamily home? Do you want to own a mobile home park somewhere? That's going to really drive. That's going to help dictate what market you might want to go to, and then you're going to need to choose your strategy, right? So by strategy, I mean, are you looking to build passive income and long-term wealth from a big rental portfolio, or are you thinking more short-term, right? You're trying to increase your capital. You're trying to build capital as quickly as possible. You might look to flip or wholesale homes. And then the other thing to think about besides just your financial goals is like, how much time are you willing to spend? So some people, they want to invest, but they don't want to spend a lot of time at all. And there are like turnkey providers out there that will basically find homes, fix them up, bring them to the top of the market as far as rents and ARV, and then get a renter in there, and then they'll sell that home at a premium, right? And that's another option if you don't want to spend a lot of time or do a lot of work on investing. I would say for us, we pretty much only deal in single family homes, like Frank said, and we really like turnkey rentals that we can bring as assets under management. So they need very little work. Typically, they already have a tenant in place. Sometimes they don't. Or we like very easy, quick flips, which people sometimes call wholesales, right? But we're wholesaling. We're trying to find motivated sellers all throughout the country. And for the really good deals, we'll cherry pick those for ourselves. And sometimes you can just buy a home cash at 60% of ARV, turn around and list it on the MLS, and make a significant profit like that. So after you choose your niche and strategy, you're going to have to find the market that you're going to go into. And in my opinion, this is by far the hardest part of this whole process because there are so many options. And it can really cause, paralysis by analysis. So the first thing you need to do is figure out what your investment goals are. Again, that goes back to like, if you're looking to build a rental portfolio, then you're going to need a market that has homes that cash flow, right? And assume, like, again, if you're buying a rental property, the main thing you're going to want to look at in that case is the price to rent ratio. So in what markets is the rent higher than the expenses of owning a property? One rule that a lot of investors use just to quickly filter through properties is the 1% rule. And that allows you to kind of judge very quickly whether or not a property is going to cash flow. So the way it works is if you're buying a $100,000 home and you can rent it for $1,200, then the rent is 1.2% of the total purchase price, right? So that crushes the 1% rule. That's probably a home that's going to cash flow. If you are buying a $200,000 home that you can rent for $1,500, right? That's only 0.75% of the purchase price. That home's probably not going to cash flow. And then if you're looking to flip, you might need a completely different market. So when you're flipping, you're looking for properties that you can sell for significantly more than the cost associated with purchasing and rehabbing those properties. And typically those markets are going to be ones that are appreciating and the prices are already high. So you have to understand kind of what your investment goals are right away before kind of starting to identify potential markets. And then you want to leverage where you've lived in the past and the relationships you have. So a really good way in my mind, we started out doing this when we were expanding our markets in our company, was the first markets that we went to were places that one of us had already lived in, right? And if you've already lived somewhere, you know the good places to live, you kind of know what people pay for rent, you know what the houses look like. So that's a really good place to start. Then the other thing is, who do you have in your life or in your network that is already involved in real estate. Like maybe you have a broker out in Denver, you have a cousin who's a property manager in Fayetteville, North Carolina. You want to reach out to those people, learn more about their market, and potentially those are places you want to go. Outside of those, you want to identify more potential markets based on your goals. So there's a tons of ways to do that. One of the easiest ways, and I'm sure everyone on this webinar has listened to a ton of Bigger Pockets podcasts, right? I think that's the easiest way. Every single episode has an investor who's trying a strategy that you might want to use, and they're telling you exactly what markets they're in, what their numbers are, right? So that's a very easy way to get a broad understanding of all the markets in the country. Then you can hop on any of the real estate forums. Bigger Pockets forums are great. Your real estate investing association meetups, all those sorts of places. You want to start identify what other people are doing and model what they're doing so that you can have the same success. The next step is you just want to start collecting and analyzing a bunch of data. There's a ton of ways to do that. One of the websites that I like to use when I'm just kind of getting a broad overview of a market is datausa.io. And it's just a really good website that congregates all this data and kind of get a good picture of the market drivers and the macroeconomics in that area. And then there's tools out there like BP Insights, which is a Bigger Pockets service, Zillow, Realtor.com. You're familiar with all these websites, right? You can just start cruising them. They have lots of insights into different markets, and they have a lot of data on there that you can start looking into. Personally, we like markets that are anchored with strong job stability. So we like strong rental markets with high rental and home demand. And for those reasons, we might be biased because we're all veterans. We've lived in a lot of the markets that we're currently operating in. But we really, really like military markets. We think they're largely unknown. There's not a lot of competition. They are underappreciated for appreciation. Like they're actually, a lot of our markets are doing much better than people would assume. And it's a strong hedge against like other market conditions and what else is going on in the world. But we'll speak about that a little bit later here. Is this all making sense? Frank, do you have anything you want to add here? Any questions?
I had one rule, like you mentioned the 1% rule, which I think is great for rentals. For flipping, a conservative rule, but it's a good rule, is the 70% rule. If you're evaluating a deal for a flip, you always need to get a good comp or a resale value, an ARV. You always need to know what that is for a house, right? Because that's what you're going to base all the math off of. So you're looking at a home, you say it's worth, totally fixed up, good condition, it's worth $200,000. Simple number. What's 70% of that? $140,000. What's the rehab, right? $10,000. 70% of the value minus the rehab value is what your max purchase price could be if you're looking at deals really quickly. So in the scenario I just gave, 130 grand is the max purchase price. Sounds like that's a really big, like lowball offer, but when you're doing flips, price is the best way to hedge your risk. Get it cheap, So 70% rule, 70% of the resale value minus rehab cost. That's a good rule to keep in your back pocket.
Yeah, and I'll just throw one more rule out there for shit's sake. 50% rule when you're looking at rental properties. It's a very conservative rule, just like the 70% rule, but it basically says that you can assume that 50% of that rent is going to go towards expenses, not including your mortgage, right? So that's just going to help you do a quick back of the napkin math on any property that you might be looking at. All right. So the next step is building your team. This is a really, really important step in the process. In my opinion, you're going to need 5 people that are going to be essential for you in every market that you're in. So anyone that's experienced with real estate investing on the call, you know that it's all about finding deals. Plain and simple, you make your money when you buy a property. And without a doubt, the most crucial person that's going to be a part of your team is the deal finder. And it's probably not going to be one person. It's probably going to be a lot of people. but you need someone that's continuously bringing you new deals. A lot of times this is your agent, right? There are agents out there that work with a lot of investors. They have pocket listings, which is kind of the agent speak for an off-market listing. But there are lots of other people that can bring you deals. Everyone on this list can bring you deals, right? A property manager is working with other investors. They know who is tired of being an out-of-state landlord and they might want to sell their property. A contractor is doing work for other investors and they might know who has properties they want to get rid of. There's other people like, real estate attorneys who are very connected to investors and they might know someone. So you're going to want to have kind of a network of people that are bringing you deals continuously. I will say that the real estate agent number 2 on this list is probably one of the best people to start bringing you deals. And you want to find a investor-friendly agent, right? So what do I mean by that? In my mind, it's someone that is very responsive and they understand that it's all about the numbers, right? So I recommend as you start talking to real estate agents, you interview a bunch, right? And you ask them open-ended questions like, what's a good investor's agent look like to you? And if they tell you, it's all about the numbers and it's speed of getting the offers in and of responding to you, then that's probably going to be someone that you want on your team for sure. The other thing that the agent's going to do is they're going to run comps on your properties for you, right? So they're going to basically confirm what you think the after repair value is, the value of the home is, kind of double check your numbers. And they're also going to keep you away from the bad neighborhoods that you don't want to invest in, right? Third person on this list is going to be your property manager. Obviously, they're like super essential for managing an out-of-state rental. They're also going to keep you out of the bad neighborhoods. So they're going to be able to tell you like where are the bad tenants, what neighborhoods are slow to find renters, what neighborhoods get off the market as soon as they're listed. And they're also going to be able to comp rental rates for you. So you can use these websites like Rent-A-Meter and Zillow to kind of estimate what your rental rates are going to be like. But using a property manager who is actively doing it is going to be your best bet. All right, the fourth person on this list, your contractor. These guys are so important, especially if you're going to do any work on a property. They should be able to provide you 2 estimates when you're looking at an investment property. One for potential as a rental, and then one as a flip, right? And if they can't provide both of those, or they don't even know what you mean when you tell them you need 2 different estimates, then they're probably not the one for you, okay? You also need someone that's good with technology. Like we've worked with a lot of contractors in a lot of markets, and still surprising like how hard it is for people to FaceTime or to take a lot of pictures on their phone. Sometimes we ask people to go to a house and take a lot of pictures, and it's amazing what they come back with. Even just like upload a video to the cloud. So you need someone that's going to be able to use technology so that you can still get eyes on what they're doing and on the property. And I like contractors that are investors themselves. So they understand that it's all about the numbers. They know what you're looking for, and they have a network of other investors. And those are just great people to partner with, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would add to that. Like one question I always ask a contractor to kind of test if they're knowledgeable from an investment perspective is if I have a home that could be flipped or be a rental, I always ask them like right off the bat, like, hey, what do you think the number is for this rehab if it's a rental versus a flip? Because those 2 numbers should be different. When you flip a home, you're probably going to have higher end fixtures, higher end cabinetry, like all that stuff is going to be nicer because you're trying to get to the top of the market. On a rental, you can get those like old nice like wood cabinetry and like some vinyl flooring, good to go, different cost. So the contractor should be right off the bat, like kind of give you those 2 numbers. If they don't know how to do that, then I would kind of question how many investors they've worked for. So I think that's a good little litmus test for them.
Good point. So the last person you're going to need in every market you're in is a bunch of lenders, right? You're going to need some conventional lenders and you're going to need a few hard money lenders, and you're going to want more than one. For one, it's going to allow you to pursue, if you have a hard money and a traditional lender, it's going to allow you to pursue a lot of strategies. But the other thing is, like, we saw during COVID, a lot of the lenders that we were working with beforehand just turned off their lending like that. And that can happen at any time, right? So it's very important to have multiple lenders that you're connected with, that you're networked with, so that when you need to do a deal, you have someone to go to. I would recommend looking at credit unions. I've kind of found that they are easier to work with from an investor's perspective, right? They don't package their loans that they do and sell them off. The first investment property that me and Frank bought, we were kind of amazed when, like, 2 months later, we were trying to get information on the loan, and the person that sold us the loan had 0 documents on the loan that they gave us, because they sold the loan like immediately thereafter. So that's really nice about credit unions. And they also know the local market much better. So they're able to take on a little bit more risk and work with investors better, in my opinion. And then the last thing I'll say about this whole team is, like, you need to play everybody off each other, right? So you need your agent tells you what an ARV for a home is. You need to talk to your contractor and your lender and say, hey, is this right? Contractor tells you, hey, I just did this work on the home, right? You need to have a property manager go over there and take a look at it and double check and say, yeah, this is good to go. A renter's not going to have a problem with this, right? So you need to use all these people as checks and balances to make sure that what they're saying is true, until you have, like, a really trustworthy partner in each of these roles.
We had a question, Key. We had a question, and I was going to try to answer it in the chat, but I think we might as well just answer it here from Trina. How do you estimate ARV for out-of-state properties? I can try to answer it since I've been looking at it.
Yep.
So we use an application, Trina, called PropStream, which is basically like is a large database of all the properties in the United States, and it has certain features like showing comparable prices for a home. Most people don't have that, right? So how would I recommend someone else doing it? I would go into even Zillow, any app that has access to the multiple listing service where all the home transactions in the United States are listed. I would go back a year and see 3 recent purchases within a mile of the home you're looking at. Hopefully within the same subdivision, if possible, if there's been that much volume of sales. Now, when you do that, you might have some that are 3 bedrooms, some that are 4 bedrooms. Try to get as close as you can to the profile of the home that you're looking at, and figure out what the average price per square foot is. The average price per square foot is a really good indicator. And then if you do the math and you figure out, okay, the average price per square foot in this subdivision for new sales is $100, then just multiply that by the square footage in the house that you're looking at. I don't know if that was too complicated or not, but that's kind of how we do it. That's a simple way to explain how we do it. Did that make sense, Trina? Okay, I guess not.
I will say one thing that Frank just mentioned was in the same neighborhood, right? And it's very easy to get, I'm a super optimistic person, right? I think numbers are going to work out better than they are just naturally. And it's very easy to start expanding that search outside of just that exact neighborhood, right? Like those couple of streets, and start looking at what the neighborhood next door is doing. So it's really important to keep that circle as small as possible. Unless there are no sales nearby over the last couple of years, then you're going to have to start expanding it. But typically we stay under like 0.3, 0.5 miles from the home.
Hey guys, I got another question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, this is Reinhardt from the Seattle area. So to your question earlier, I've got in-state properties, and I've been moving closer and closer to the border of Washington to try to get out of state, on purpose, so I could try out property management and then, eventually go out of state. So my next deal is going to be out of state. But how do you guys find those teams? Like, but I see a really good deal on your list. I'm like, okay, well, I have no contacts in that area. So, I mean, is that something that you guys can help with finding contacts, or how do you generally build that team in the area?
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely point you to, we can give you referrals in our network. If you're talking about our markets, we can definitely do that. And I feel like anyone that's marketing deals should be able to do that to some degree. I will also say you can go on like Bigger Pockets and you can, they have like vendors on there or it's something like that, but you can get on their website and you can look up any area in the country and you can find agents, property managers, and they're going to have reviews, which is awesome. But you're also going to be able to see like how many posts they've commented on and how many blogs they've done. Like you're going to be able to see a little bit more. You can actually like research like what their thought process is and kind of how they're contributing to the Bigger Pockets forum. So that's another great resource to find those people.
Reinhardt, good to talk to you again, man. It's Frank. The other thing, if you're talking about an agent, because you're usually starting with finding a deal, another thing I like to do is I like to look the agents up in a market and see how many transactions they've done in the last 365 days and how many listings they have. Because to me, a good indicator of what an awesome agent looks like is kind of volume, you know? Like the best agents do the most business. So I like to look at that. Another indicator that an agent
Frank, how do you do that?
You can do that on Zillow. You can see the number of listings they have. I know our application PropStream, you can do it. You can like if you just Google some of the agents, you can see all their listings. So just type in like John Smith listings. But I've used Zillow for it in the past because they do keep track of that. I forget. You can get it exported into Excel. I'm forgetting how we do that in Zillow. We usually use PropStream now, Key. It's public knowledge. Another thing you can do to spot check if your investor is friendly is see if they there's commercial real estate websites. Crexi is one of them, CREXI. LoopNet is probably the most famous. It's an app that you can use on your phone. And a lot of times people that are investor friendly have listings there as well. Now, I don't recommend buying properties from those applications because that's kind of where deals go to die. But at least it shows you that that agent is working with other investors on other deals. So I think if you're thinking about an agent, get some proof that they're actually active. You know, don't take everyone's word for it because they're salesmen just like everybody else. So that's one tip I have.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for the information. And then how do you manage the rehab? You just have the contractor bid and have the property manager oversee them? Or are you guys also including a project manager?
So on our flips that have more work involved, we manage the contractors directly. We just use FaceTime and photos to manage the projects. But one thing that we do, and this is all about risk appetite, it's completely up to the investor, is we try to, in most of our markets, avoid really, really massive rehabs. And the reason is if you're talking about a gut job where maybe you got to put 50 grand or more into a house to bring it up to resale value or market value, you know, we operate in over 10 cities. We're never going to be the best company at doing that. You know, like the best person for that type of job is a general contractor, and we're never going to beat them at their own game. So we try to find homes on the cheap and beat everybody on price. And then we could just flip the homes with minimal rehabs. So most of our homes that we flipped in the last couple of months, like we flipped a home one time and we didn't even put $1 into the rehab. We bought it at a cheap price and sold it a couple of weeks later. I mean, that's our ideal situation because we're not local, you know? If you're local, then I think you can take advantage of those higher risk, higher margin deals. But, you know, like I said, we try to win on price.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, Reinhardt, if you're looking at a potential rental, right, you probably could leverage your property manager to help manage that project a little bit. And if it's a flip, then I would try to get your agent involved, right, to make sure that the work's getting done there. And then the last thing is, as far as finding like an agent that really works with investors, a simple question is like, a lot of agents will say that that they work with a lot of investors. But just ask them if they have pocket listings, and if so, send them to you. And if they don't send you pocket listings with, a bunch of listings within 24 hours, then they're probably lying. All right, so let's get in. I know I'm taking up a lot of time here, so all right. Step number 4 here, you're gonna want to know your market. Again, if you do your job right on step number 3 and build that core team of solid people, then the first thing you're going to do is really rely on them to help inform you of where the good neighborhoods are to invest in. You're also going to leverage all those resources we mentioned when we were talking about finding. Is there feedback? Me?
You think you're good now?
All right. So you're going to use those same resources that you were using beforehand to just dive deeper into your markets.
How'd it go?
The 5 things that you're going to want to know about, kind of the 5 main things that I think about are obviously, where's the crime? You don't really want to invest in a place with high crime. There's a lot of things that can come from that. Where are the good schools, right? Homes that are in good school districts rent faster, they sell faster, they sell for more. So you always want to know that. Where are new jobs coming in? Elon Musk just bought a huge chunk of land outside of Austin when all the COVID quarantine stuff hit in California. He wants to move that plant out of there. And he bought this like parcel of land to the east of Austin that there was nothing really there except these little rinky-dinky towns. And as soon as he bought that land and announced that they're moving there, all the homes in that area skyrocketed, right? So you always want to know where the jobs are going. And then a lot of times cities, towns, counties are doing these development projects with big shopping centers, lots of amenities. Those are always good places to invest nearby because those homes appreciate. And then diving a little bit deeper into the amenities piece, I read an article recently that someone did a bunch of research on Starbucks, right? Every time Starbucks opens a new store in a place that didn't have any Starbucks nearby, the homes appreciate 1% to 2% in like 6 months or something. So Starbucks is more important than you think. You know what I mean? Like amenities, I think especially our generation is all about it. So that's another thing that you want to think about when you're thinking about exactly where you want to invest in the market. And then the last step of this process, right, is you're going to want to take daily consistent action. You have to work every day. It doesn't have to be a lot. It could be 10 minutes. It could be 15 minutes, but you have to do something every day. You're going to want to get your agent to set you up on MLS so you get automatic emails for properties that are listed that meet your criteria. You're going to want to meet a bunch of wholesalers in those markets and get on all of their buyer distros. And both of those things are going to allow you to know the market better the longer that you're evaluating deals, right? So you're going to see which properties come onto the market above maybe market value, which ones move really quickly. Wholesalers typically, list properties through email, and then they send out like a sold email, and you're going to want to keep track of which properties and which zip codes are moving really quickly from your wholesalers.
Hey, you take some notes for me when I say something. Type it in, okay?
Hey, Key, I think you gotta mute Ron. Or Ron, if you're here, can you put yourself on mute? Okay, thanks, Ron.
There we go. All right, so back to this daily consistent action, right? You're going to want to analyze deals every day. A good round number is analyze 10 deals every day. Doesn't mean it has to be like the perfect deal, but just run the numbers, get very familiar with what the properties in your area can do, right? And that's going to allow you to be very confident to start making offers. Now, like you're going to find very few properties that are going to meet your investment criteria up front, right? Like people are not listing their properties as deals most of the time. So you're going to want to just start making offers that make sense for your numbers and your criteria. And eventually you're going to find a motivated seller who's willing to do a deal that's going to meet your criteria. All right, but you're going to have to make offers, and making offers is just part of that learning experience, especially outside of or inside of a new market. And then from there, man, it's just commit and buy. Like, just when someone accepts an offer, you're going to get this like uneasy feeling in your stomach. It's going to feel really uncomfortable. You're like, oh shit, I'm about to buy a home 2,000 miles away. Is this what I really want to do? Just commit, buy it. The key is that you need to buy right? You need a hedge against risk. If you're buying far below market value, right, below 80% of what it's worth, then you can be pretty confident that no matter what happens, you're not going to lose a ton of money on that deal. Is this all making sense? Are there any questions about what we covered so far? All right, I know it's getting late, so I'm gonna keep it moving here. So I mentioned that we operate primarily in military markets. I want to talk a little bit about why. But first, I want to talk about what's currently going on in the marketplace, right? So we know COVID hit. We know a lot of people got laid off. Unemployment skyrocketed. And there's kind of these alarming stats that you're seeing in the news every time you check. We just want to discuss. So I saw this at the end of July, that 1/3 of U.S. households have little to no confidence that they can pay the next month's rent. And at the same time, 1/3 of U.S. households owed money for missed rent or missed mortgage. And that was at the beginning of August, right? So people are getting laid off, unemployment's going up, people aren't able to pay their rent and their mortgage, and they're not confident they're going to be able to moving forward. But despite all of that, the median list price in America has gone up 10%. And sales prices have gone up by like 8% this year, year over year. A lot of that is because interest rates are crazy low right now. Supply is way down. You know, there's a large portion of the population that is not willing to move right now. And demand is up, right? Like a lot of people that are living in small apartments, broadcasting right next to their bed like I am in a tiny New York City apartment. Like, we want to get the hell out of here. We want to get a house with a yard and some space. So demand's way up. It's driving prices up. But no one really knows where this is heading and, you know, kind of what the consequences are going to be in the future. So when we start looking at military markets, can anyone on the call guess what this number is referring to right here? It has something to do with military, U.S. service members.
The number of Dodge Challengers purchased last year.
Yeah.
Number of renters in the U.S. in military markets, maybe.
That's a good guess. That's close.
Number of people that move every year.
Damn, John's on fire. That's it, man. So 430,000 U.S. service members are forced to move themselves and their families every single year throughout the country. So in my mind, you know, to us, that is just creates a very strong rental and home buying market around the big military bases. Besides that, you have two rent collectors. So Frank and I both were commanders in different units, different levels. I know a lot of people on this call were as well. And when you have a soldier that doesn't pay their rent, obviously you have your property manager or whatever that's trying to collect that rent from the soldier, but anyone can pick up the phone, call that unit and say, hey, this guy is not paying me my rent. And they can literally just deduct their pay moving forward. So they make sure they start paying. So, you know, it's a nice hedge against someone not paying rent in the military markets. The other thing is there's very low volatility in these markets. And, you know, I mentioned it before, but it's like underappreciated appreciation. So if you look at these two maps, these are graphs. These are house price index for the U.S. and then Clarksville, Tennessee, which is right outside of Fort Campbell, big Army base. And that big gray column down the middle there is the Great Recession of 2008, big housing crisis that we had. And you'll see that like housing prices in Clarksville pretty much stayed flat. Nothing crazy really happened there. But following it, you still saw all that appreciation of the homes. And on our website, we have free market analysis for every single market that we're in. Pretty much all of them look exactly like this. one thing that you can't really, or you might not notice at first glance, is that if you actually look at the graphs, you'll see that the homes in Clarksville, from say the prices they're at in like 2007, actually appreciated more as compared to the U.S. house price index, right? Because they didn't drop at all. So that's another reason that we really love these markets. And then lastly is the job growth. Killeen is an hour outside of Austin, Texas. It's a huge military installation. Clarksville is an hour outside of Nashville. It's a very popular market, hot market right now. Fayetteville is one of the top markets in the country right now in North Carolina. And there's a lot of job growth in these areas, and a lot of it's outpacing the U.S. And the same is true for population. Here are all the markets that we're in throughout the country right now. This is, what we've expanded to in the last 6 months. By this time next year, I have to believe we're going to be in like 30 markets throughout the country. But all of these are, for the most part, very strong, well-performing markets and have the characteristics we just talked about. All right, so let's start looking at some deals real quick. All right, I got a special one-time offer for everyone for staying with us on the call this long. We're going to offer $1,000 discount if someone places an offer or books a walkthrough in the next 24 hours on these two properties. So I'm going to run through them real quick. This is in Columbus, Georgia, just outside of Fort Benning. This is like an amazing property, right? So it's a nice brick home. It's got good wood floors, nice carpet throughout, a good kitchen that's like perfect for renting. It's got tenants in there through March of next year. Nice cash flow. And what we have it listed for, you're buying a ton of equity. So again, we have it listed for $81K. It rents at $850 a month right now, and the ARV is $108K. We mentioned the 1% rule. This crushes that, right? So 850 is more than 1% of 81 grand. So this home cash flows really nicely, and the purchase price as a percentage of the ARV is about 75%. So a lot of people hear about the BRRRR strategy, right? The BRRRR strategy is essentially buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat, right? And it's a way for you to pull all your money out of investment so that you can leverage it on another deal. What's cool about this home is that it's far below what most people will let you do a cash out, what most traditional lenders will let you do a cash out refi at. So most lenders are typically around 80% cash out refi. And with this home, you're buying at 75% of the value, but it needs no work. So what you can do with this home is you can buy it with cash, your own cash. You can raise money from a private lender, someone you know, at like 8%. And you're only going to need to do it for a few months because you're going to buy it cash. All right. You're going to use delayed financing with a traditional lender, which is basically like a cash out refi, but it's within 6 months. Typically with a cash out refinance, you have to wait 6 months, let the property season, let the renter be in there for a while. With this, it already has tenants. It doesn't need any work. So you're skipping the rehab and rent. And within a few, typically within like 4 to 8 weeks, you can refinance with delayed financing, pull your money out. In this case, you'll probably be able to pull out a little bit more capital. You can probably pull out enough money to actually pay for your closing costs. And so this is just a really cool opportunity. Again, if you guys are interested in it, Frank, if you want to drop the link into the chat real quick, it'll take you to our website. You can look at the listing. There's more pictures there. But if you're looking for a cash flowing property in a military town where you buy a lot of equity and you can pull all your money out of the deal and just have another property as part of your portfolio, like this is an awesome opportunity in my mind. And then the next one I'll mention is 1213 Duncan Street in Fayetteville. This is just outside of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Huge Army base that's not going anywhere. This is actually a very popular market right now. Homes are appreciating like crazy there. investors are starting to get really, really active there. And this home is similar to Lake Drive, brick home in really good condition, doesn't really need any work. It's ready to be rented. The cash price is $105K. Right now it's renting for $900 through February. That's way below market rents for a home like this. It's actually I don't have any of the stats on here, so that's my fault, but it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and this has like 1,800 square feet. So it's a big home. And I would say like the bottom for rents on this are like 1,000, 1,050 for sure. And then again, the ARV is 132. So you're buying a lot of equity up front. As soon as that tenant gets out, you'll be able to raise those rents, get them up to kind of the market rate, and then you'll be cash flowing really nicely with this home. Frank, if you want to drop that link in the chat as well.
I did. I'll add one thing. We also facilitate lending, off-market lending. We actually did our first loan where we lent to a buyer this week. And we have just recently partnered with a off-market private money lender, Tempo View Capital. So if you're looking at this presentation and you're saying, hey, I really want to get involved, but I don't have the financing, we can also help you with that. So don't let that be a complete barrier to you.
Yeah, and I'll say like the best investors, I mean, if you've listened to Bigger Pockets, like these guys are not using their own money, right? So creative financing is part of like any investor strategy to build a portfolio. So if you're interested, let us know. We'll definitely help you out or point you to the right resources. The other thing we just want to offer you guys, I know that there are some newbie investors on the call. We have a investors course. It teaches you all the fundamentals of kind of setting what your financial goals are, developing, exactly why and what you want, digging a little bit deeper into building your team, analyzing markets, analyzing deals, and then taking action to move forward. This is actually designed and ran by our partner, Erin Helly, who you saw on an earlier slide. She does a really great job in the course. And Frank, if you drop that link in the chat, if you follow that link, you'll be able to get 50% off the course. It's going to, we've had multiple new investors take this course and then start building their investment portfolios. So take advantage of that. If you're feeling like you're not exactly sure where to go and you need a little bit of direction, this is going to be a great course for you. And then the last thing I'll mention is that we have a mastermind. And right now, we only have one slot open. We're considering expanding it. It's a group of, right now, 14 people, all really awesome, high-achieving people who are really passionate about real estate. Most of them already have experience and like some sort of portfolio. We do have a few newer investors in the group. But the whole point of this group is to hold each other accountable to take action, right? We're going to help each other, with best practices and solving each other's problems and figuring out, how to get money to fund a deal and all of that. But the main thing is we meet every single week on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and we hold each other accountable. Did you do what you said you were going to do last week? And that's like the really big benefit out of this call or out of this group. The other thing that we do is we do monthly Q&A calls with real estate professionals. So we just had one with a conventional lender who is also a West Pointer, class of 96. Really cool guy. He gave us tons of insight into the lending world, into what he sees for the future. And, we tailor those to the group. So if you're looking to take your, investment journey to the next level, this is a great place for you to start. We'd love to, consider you to join the group. Frank, if you drop that into the chat, you can go there, you can check out what the group's all about, and you can apply. If you do that, I will reach out to you soon and we can chat. And that's it for the presentation. Do we have any questions? Any deals we want to talk about? Like, we love talking over specific deals. So if someone has something they're looking at, we would love to talk about it.
Hey, yeah, you guys talked about delayed financing, and that's been something I've wanted to dig more into. Can you talk a little bit about how that works?
Yeah.
I can do that because I'm kind of like the money person for our company right now in terms of raising it. So I prefer to raise money privately, Reinhardt, meaning like me and you could do the transaction, right? I can go Reinhardt if the person has capital. So I'll go to them and be like, hey, I'm looking to buy a property. This is what I do. This is what the deal looks like. If you're seeking private lending or any type of delayed financing, really through hard money or private, the deal needs to be strong because that lender is going to scrutinize two things: the deal, they're going to make sure it's good, and you, right? Those are the two securities that lenders have: the deal and the person they're giving the money to. If those two things check out, the lender should feel good, right? So one thing before I even get started, make sure you have a deal. Two, I look for people who are invested in real estate, but actually, but in addition to that, I look for entrepreneurs. A lot of people that lend privately, like you think like investment bankers and Wall Street people who have a lot of money are like the source of the cash. I find that to not be the case. People who own LA fitnesses, gyms, local businesses, like your local butcher that's owned that place for like 30 years, like or whatever, those people love to do off market dealing, right? Like they get, and they're like more risk tolerant.
Yeah.
Because like if you get someone who's like real white collar, they're just not really exposed to this space. So I have found that like networking with other entrepreneurs is a great way to raise money, and you can get a better interest rate on your capital than you can through hard money. Right? A hard money lender is going to take you through a more difficult underwriting process for an off-market transaction, and like they're going to ask for your photo ID, like all the stuff that like a lender asks for. They're going to get your W-2s potentially, right? All that stuff, and they're going to scrutinize your deal. And the other downside of hard money lenders, from my perspective, is they kind of manage your projects.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a flip, let's say, and your budget for the flip is $40,000, they might not give you that entire $40,000 at the start of the construction. They might ask you to get halfway through the construction, and then they'll give you this half the amount later, which is annoying, right? It's like another thing to manage while you're going through a project.
Even worse, sometimes they only reimburse you after the work is done.
Right, right. So it's all negotiable, but that's true. Some of them do that, and they typically are charging interest rates. The lowest I see is 8.5, which is good for hard money. But generally, I'm seeing 10 to 13%, and then a couple points mixed in. So it's not cheap capital, is what I'm saying. So I think when you start out, you might have to pay hard money, Reinhardt. But as you get good, try to seek out private money. Is basically what I'm saying.
But so, I mean, what if you had your own capital, because then you don't have to pay the 8 or 9%. Can you use cash, but still use delayed financing, or do
Yeah.
you have
Oh
to
yeah.
use a loan?
You can. It's just hard to scale that way, unless I don't know. You might have a lot of money, so I might be wrong. But
Not that much. Enough
yeah.
for a couple of deals at a time.
Right. Okay. Yeah, you can do that. I mean, you can. So let's say you bought a house, 100 grand cash, right? And you were going to put 20 grand in, and it's worth 200. Great deal. Let's just use that as an example. You might have to wait a couple months for that property to do what's called like seasoning if you're trying to do a delayed financing, and that might take 3 to 6 months. And that's so that the lender sees that the property's performing. This is a Burr example I'm giving, Reinhardt. And then you could generally take up to 75% of the loan to value. So in a $200,000 house, that means you could take out 150K, right? So in the example I just gave, you have no money in the deal. I can go through that again if I went a little fast.
No, that makes sense. I'm just trying. If you don't want to wait for the seasoning period and do a burr more quickly, one way to do it is to get a portfolio loan, but
Yeah.
they typically charge, a couple points higher of interest. But I've heard delayed financing, and I think that's where you go with like a traditional, conventional finance, but then you tell them you're going to put in the repairs, and so they kind of give you a loan for the ARV, but it's kind of like a cash out. It's just structured. It's like the same loan, but instead of a cash out later.
This is Reinhardt. So I know exactly what you're talking about. This is how you do it. Okay. They will either do, right. So you know your HUD, right? When you buy a property, you have your HUD statement. and that has all your costs and everything on there. So
Okay.
for delayed financing, they will either do 100% of the HUD or 75% of the after repair value or the value, whichever is less. So a hack for that, if you're going to do some rehab work and you have a contractor you trust, even if you don't really have a contractor you trust, you can still do this, okay? You bake your rehab costs into your HUD. So say, again, Frank's example, 100K home, you have 20K of rehab costs. You call the title attorney and you say, hey, I want to add the rehab costs to this HUD. And they're going to be like, okay, whatever, no problem. They're going to add them in there. You can even use the title company to act as escrow and do draws for the contractor, right? So you can have the contractor basically request draws from that title company or from the escrow account, I should say. And that's going to increase the cost on your HUD. And then they're going to look at what's less, right? The cost of the HUD or 75% of the value. And that will allow you to actually do the refinance or the delayed financing, I should say, in under 6 months. I just talked to a guy who's basically doing the burst strategy in 8 weeks because he's doing that. He's baking all of his costs into the HUD so that he can basically, finance as soon as the rehab job is done. And you don't have to wait 6 months. So you get to leverage your capital way faster.
Okay, and so you start out with that lender from the beginning, and do they put the loan on from the beginning, or like do they fund it at all and then pay you out more once it's after repair?
They don't fund it at all. Like I would say, if you don't have your own cash, like Frank said, using a hard money lender or private lender, right, to fund the deal initially. But like as soon as you're pursuing the deal, it looks like it's going to happen. You're going to want to talk to a ton of lenders while the rehab's going on, all that, right? And you're going to find out like who potentially will work with you on this deal, who will be open to doing delayed financing, and you're just going to want to line those people up, and then you'll start talking to them before the rehab and all that's done, so that when it is done, you can just submit the paperwork and get the process started.
Okay, nice, thanks.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any questions? Any deals we want to talk about?
Yeah, I got a deal for you guys.
All right.
Yeah, it's in so I don't know how much detail you guys want. I can give the high level numbers, but it's in Cleveland. Single family home, looking to burr. So purchase price $47,000. The seller has they've already hinted that they're good with that. So consider that the purchase price. Needs about $24,000 in repairs. That's from an initial GC bid, but that's probably on the higher side. ARV is 83, and then so obviously if you just run the numbers there's still money left in the deal. There's actually $15,000 left in the deal, which obviously that's not a perfect burr, but there's kind of two things at play here. Post refi, there's a 222 in cash flow, which is also a 17% cash on cash ROI, which for all the deals that I've been looking at with my agent, that's on the higher side, because most of them, they're barely cutting 10-12% with low hundreds in cash flow. So that's kind of the situation I'm in. It's obviously not all of my money is I'm not recovering all of my capital, but the cash flow and ROI numbers are still there. So that's kind of where I'm stuck at. And the property itself is in a great neighborhood. I mean, it's Cleveland, probably not a lot of appreciation potential, but it's probably a low B class if we wanted to put it in one.
Gotcha. How are you going to finance it?
Cash, my personal cash.
Okay. So you don't have interest burning up a hole in your pocket.
No.
So at this price point, I think you could still do this. I do think it's a little thin on a traditional rental, which you're alluding to, but you're still going to cash flow at those numbers. I would look at, on the exit strategy for this, a lease option. Have you ever heard of the term lease option?
I've heard of the term, but I've never dig too deep into it. I can write that down and make a note of it. But yeah, I mean, definitely open to hearing about it.
We get fired up about lease options, so get ready.
Yeah. Well, I think at these price points, it makes a lot of sense. So what a lease option is, and this anyone who owns a home that can cash flow, meaning like the rental rate's higher than your PITI, your principal, interest, taxes, insurance, anyone could do this. Could be on your primary residence when you sell it. Could be on a rental you already own. Could work in this situation, right? I like this because I can market these properties, Paramveer, without an agent. I market these homes ourselves. I use an application called tenantturner.com to market them. I'll show you if you want to get into it. But a lease option is this: you market the property at whatever rent you want to collect. Let's say it's $800 for this property. It's on Zillow. It's on all the other websites, and you market it as rent to own. You then, when you meet your buyer, you say, "This is the purchase price. Let's say it's $80,000. This is the rental rate. Here's it. I need an $8,000 down payment." And you give them the option to rent the home for up to 2 years or whatever time frame you designate, and they live in that home paying you rent. And then when that 2-year option period expires, they are obligated to purchase the home. This whole program is built for people that maybe don't have credit. And like in this price range, you're going to find these people. They don't have credit, they don't have cash, so it's difficult for them to qualify for a loan. This time period allows them to build up their credit and allows them to get ready for the purchase. It allows them to get in a home. But it gives you, and the benefits to the landlord is, in these types of deals, you're not accountable for maintenance. There's usually a 30-day warranty where the owner or the landlord is responsible to fix stuff. And after that, the responsibility shifts over to the tenant. So your cash flow is more predictable and your purchase price is much more predictable. And an area without appreciation, like you alluded to, that's fine, right? I wouldn't recommend this in Colorado Springs because the homes go up every year. Can't predict. But where you're at, I think it's a perfect strategy.
Okay, so I think the key thing there is after 2 years, they have to buy the home. So
Yeah.
what's their obligation? Like,
Your down payment.
Yeah.
So in the beginning they listed a down payment. I might have missed that.
Yeah. So what you collect at closing is the security deposit, normal, right? Every rental you do that typically. A down payment, that's the difference. And typically we try to get 10% of the purchase price.
Mhm.
So in your case, you're out 55 grand-ish, because you're buying this all cash. You can maybe get 5 to 8 grand back at closing, cash flow heavily, and then exit after 2 years, right? With probably some additional equity. Because generally, when you list something as a lease option, you can charge a slightly higher price.
Gotcha.
So, because you're allowing them for that opportunity. And the way that and listen, if they default, let's say they don't pay you or they can't qualify for the loan after 2 years, just repeat the process. The down payment is yours, no matter what,
Yep. I now I'm remembering. I definitely saw a video on that.
Yeah, you're right in the sweet spot for that, I think.
No, that's great. All right, I'll definitely make a note of that. Thanks.
The other thing I think,
You said you get to keep the down payment no matter what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
the other thing I think people, when they're thinking about the bird, they think they have to pull all their money out of the deal. And like in this case, if you had to leave 3, 4, 5 grand in the deal, but pull the rest out, like that's still that's a good deal for you. You still added a property to your portfolio that's cash flowing, that you have equity in with basically no money. So it's just something else to think about.
Yep. All right. Thanks.
The lease option that shit is money. And there's a lot of people out there, for whatever reason, they can't get financing. There's a ton of people looking for, rent to own lease option homes. I imagine it's increasing, with all the stuff going on with COVID. Any other questions? Anything else we want to talk about, guys?
What are you guys mentioned you have a new partner, hard money lender. What are their typical terms?
So it depends on the investor's experience. Once you've done 10 deals, you're kind of like in their what they consider platinum status, and they go as low as 9% with I think a point or two on the loan, which is good for hard money, right? It sounds high, but that's pretty good for hard money. If you're a brand new person, but you have good credit. I think it's 11% and max 3 points. That's as bad as it can get, I guess is one way to put it. So it just depends on how you're underwritten. Your rate will be dictated off of that.
Got it. Thanks.
All right. Anything else? I mean, thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. This has been awesome. We love to do this. Let us know if we should start doing this more often. I think we're going to start doing this every other week. So, yeah, thanks again for joining us. And feel free to reach out to us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Gray Line Investments, Gray with an A. Love to hear from you. Love to connect. And, yeah, let's start doing some long distance investing together.
Guys, I just want to jump in. I just wanted to say you do have some Navy support here too.
Oh, boo.
Oh my God. Well, wait, it was Air Force that got thrashed by BYU, right? Yeah, right. Who was that? So there's an Air Force guy in here too. So I guess us and Navy can kind of at least rejoice for 1 second because that was off.
Navy over here.
Okay. All right. So we haven't played yet. So I guess we're cool for this year. But Trey is the Air Force guy. And they got thrashed 55 to 7 by BYU. Come on, guys. What's up? Anyway.
I throw the bird to that painting every night before I go to bed.
Hey, we'll see. Thanks, guys, though. This was very informative.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for joining.
Yep, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks, Key.
Yep. See you guys.
Thanks, guys.